up, guys? It's Ruse here with The Real Masculine, and I got one of my good friends and also mentors, Thomas Whigham from Self-Love Army here. Thomas, how you doing today, man?
I'm awesome. It's happy to be here.
I'm happy to have you. It's been a long time since we got to do a video call with each other. Even
Yeah,
though
face to face is good.
we've talked probably, I want to imagine several dozens of times already. uh, so Thomas, today I wanted to talk about something that I noticed, and I'm sure you notice as well, is the fuel that gets a lot of people to want to make change in their life, and that fuel that sparks it tends to be this sense or feeling of inadequacy, or this feeling of not being good enough. Where and I'll speak from my own experience, where it feels like something's missing, that something just doesn't seem right inside you, and that almost like this yearning to like understand why or figure it out pushes us into like chasing it outside of us for a while, and then realizing that that's not really working, and then reaching out for help in some way to see what's happening. What are your kind of thoughts around what that is, and how that helps guys and women to actually make meaningful change in their lives?
Yeah. The pain is an excellent motivator. In recovery, they say, people that don't get clean, maybe they just need a little bit more pain. And sometimes, your pain ends up being jail or death, so you don't quite get there. But that's one of the things that they teach is pain is a teacher, it's a motivator. The sense of inadequacy is interesting in particular. I'm of the belief that inadequacy and shame are tied together as largely like conformist tools, like to it's an instinct in us to fit in or belong to a group or a community. And so a lot of like, if you imagined a human on an island with no other contact, I doubt that person would ever feel shame. They may recognize they have mistakes. They may be like, fuck, I keep making this mistake, but they wouldn't shame themselves in particular. And for me, I see a significant portion of inadequacy tied to kind of the self-shaming, the fear of not belonging to a community or a group. And I think one of the reasons that we find so much love on the other side of that sense of inadequacy, and we find so much motivation in it, is it's tied to our sense of belonging, and our sense of whether we fit in, and our sense of community. And what I try to do in working with people is position them where they become a leader of love, a leader in a community, instead of someone who wants to fit in and belong somewhere down the hierarchy. From maximum love for ourselves, we become a person who has people under us, and we are mentoring and being strong for and loving towards. We become kind of the nexus of a community. So rather than being shamed or worrying about belonging, we have this sense of connection to everyone that we are being strong and loving for. And I think when we raise our love levels, and that's why I do work in love particularly, we become that leader. And so we see that that journey starting at the point of maybe not feeling good enough or inadequate, and going up from there. Yeah, man. It's so important. And that's a rough sketch.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That was Pierre D'Souza, by the way, just popping in.
What's up, Pierre? I don't think I've met you yet, but I'm Ruse. And cool. No, I see that as well. And I think the experience you're talking about is wanting to belong, or wanting to be a part of something bigger than themselves. And interestingly enough, that wanting itself is fueling that inadequacy. That wanting is what keeps them chasing it, and from actually seeing that it's actually right where they're already at.
They already are enough. Exactly. Yeah. It's like it's not a distance that you travel. It's an awareness you acquire. It's a sense of yourself. It's a sense of your worthiness and your completeness. Rather than I've done 1,000,000 hours of releasing and I've gotten this. It's more like the awareness you gain from doing some releasing, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it strips away the thing you think you are, and actually lets you see the thing you are. And that awareness is what helps you start to fuel your sense of adequacy, your sense of wholeness and completion.
Mm-hmm.
And when you stop wanting and stop chasing it, it actually allows you to see you already are it. And that's ironically what allows you to feel connected to others and feel like you belong already, and create that sense of belonging for others around you too. It's quite a paradox.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Most consciousness work and most, real big breakthroughs seem like they're paradoxes. Like, I was in a temple one time with this Buddhist teacher, and he was enlightened, and someone asked him, how can I detach from the love towards my mom? And he said, by realizing that you are your mom also, and that you are the love of your mom. And the person was like trying to follow that in a logical circle, and it doesn't make any sense. But what the guy was really saying was, on a deeper sense, like, we're all connected as everything, and you step outside that circle and outside that logic, and you can see how you can detach from and be love at the same time. That what you said reminds me a lot of that. But that's all stuff that I think it's really deep. If you're getting someone that is just struggling with, like, am I good enough to talk to a girl, for example, I think you and I both agree the best thing to do is build a strong emotional foundation of healthy behaviors.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's good to help people understand where their starting point is at, help them see that it's okay wherever they're at, and help them understand where they're not having a healthy relationship with themselves, so that they can correct their unattractive behaviors, or I guess self-rejecting behaviors that get them rejected.
Exactly.
So that they can move them into self-accepting behaviors. So it's not so much outward result oriented, it's more inward focus of, like, rather than did I do the right thing to get the girl, it's more like, did I do the right thing that was congruent with who I was being in that moment? Was I okay with that?
Yeah.
And again, the paradox of attraction, that's what actually makes you more attractive. That's
I just posted a question in my group, like, why is self-love the most attractive trait? And someone commented, it's because we attract our mirrors. And it's true. When you are rejecting yourself, you're typically going to get other people that are caught up in superficial self-rejection as well. And also your connection to other people will be less. It'll be less, period. You just won't connect as well to others when you're rejecting parts of yourself, when you're putting on a mask, when you're putting pressure on yourself. And like you said, self-rejecting is such an interesting way to teach people to grow. I love that you do that, because the biggest breakthrough I had was realizing that I was plenty, right? Like, I went from not feeling like I was enough to being plenty immediately. It's not like there's a bunch of steps there. It's like, oh, you don't feel like you're adequate or enough. And then all of a sudden you realize, actually, I'm plenty. And the way that everyone treated me changed the second I embodied that and just believed that and came to that awareness.
Yeah. So in other words, your inner world reflected your outer world as soon as you accepted what you were.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And it's so funny because people will say, but what if I'm not handsome, or what if I'm this race, or what if I don't have this money? And I always think, like, the single biggest thing that got people to treat me like I was attractive was just my belief that I was attractive. Like, it just made me, like, however attractive my face is, for example, the way that when I believed I was attractive, the things I did with my face, how I smirked a little, just how I communicated changed, and my body language changed. And to advanced people in your group listening to this, they're gonna be like, obviously. But to people that haven't had that happen yet, it's like magic when you just start believing that you're attractive, and everyone else is like, well, yeah, you're attractive. So, and you're like, yeah, but I wasn't attractive a week ago, and now I'm attractive, and I'm the same man. But it's how you carry yourself, your energy, your beliefs. And the other thing is, when people, a lot of attractiveness comes down to how well you handle tension and stress in situations. And when you're self-rejecting, your ability to handle social pressure is low, unless you're doing it through, like, pretend behaviors, like patterns that you've just copied. Like, I'm going to tell this story here, and I'm going to do this kind of thing, like pickup type shit. But in reality, like, social situations stop feeling like pressure when you have full self-acceptance in them. Sorry if that was rambling. Does that make sense?
No, that makes total sense. Actually, it's interesting you brought that up. This is like one of my biggest reasons why I think pickup as a whole, technical pickup as a whole, is a bit archaic. It's even if it does get you results, a lot of times it's not the pickup itself that was working. It was you were in the right energy and happened to be saying all that stuff from a more calm, grounded, accepting place. But it's hard for you to believe that when you're still in the inadequacy paradigm. If you're like, well, I'm not good looking enough, I'm not tall enough, I'm not cool enough, but I use this pickup, and just when I happen to use that pickup, you didn't notice that you were also feeling more confident and believing in yourself in that moment. Yeah, it might work sometimes for you. You also might notice that, how come it didn't work this other time for me where I used the same exact things? Well, it's because you probably were feeling shit about yourself that day, and you weren't seeing the minor differences in how your inner world was changing, how you were saying it, your facial expressions, your body language, just the way you naturally change in very micro expression ways. But women and others can subconsciously tell you went from confident to inadequate.
Yep.
And you didn't notice that. So
shit, I can tell. I'm like women in that way. I can tell when people are talking to me when they're fucking sitting in their head and not. I'm sure if people gain some awareness of that in others, they'll see it in their friends too. Like, you can feel energetic shifts in your friends. It doesn't just have to be like women have that ability. Men have that too. We're really good at noticing that if we try to start seeing that and thinking that way. But yeah, you're exactly right. And I always say this, it's how much they believed in that bullshit that's attractive. If you believe in your bullshit, it's attractive to believe in yourself and what you say and to have intention behind what you're doing. Men of intention are attractive. So these pickup artists with the systems, if they believe in it and they're giving it a good effort and belief and intention, it's more attractive behavior as men than guys that are wishy-washy or kind of melt away the second they're pushed back on or whatever. If it gives you that grit, so to speak, socially, it's going to be more attractive than not having that. But you're right, it's often not the patter, the fucking things you're saying, it's how you're doing it.
Yeah. And this is why it's interesting. Like, I actually believe that like a lot of the pickup guys out there that do this stuff, I genuinely believe that they believe their system is the fucking best in the world because they are legitimately getting great results with it and they embody it. And that's great. So I can't knock them for believing that. It's just a lot of them, they have a misunderstanding of why it is that it's working so well. And when a lot of their students inevitably struggle, it's confusing for them. They will say, well, you're not working hard enough. You're not trying hard enough. You're not doing this or doing that. But it's not the doingness. It's the problem. It's the beingness.
Yeah. You and I have a mutual client, I think, that had, 10,000 interactions, and he did all the work you could imagine. And the results were regularly poor. And it's because emotionally he was disconnected from what he was doing and lacked self-esteem and confidence and a sense of his own emotions. And the second he got more emotional, his social interactions improved. His dates improved. He got more dates. He went from ineffective to more effective through a process that he would he did straight up mock when both of us were working with him. Which is like, this can't be right. Like, how can fucking talking about poems at an open mic and sharing my feelings with people and telling my mom I love her make me better with women? It can't be true. And it's like, right, that might not be true, but your inability to do those things is part of the same reason you're having trouble connecting with women. You're cut off from your fucking feelings and it's making you less compelling. And, basically just being a superficial, horny robot and trying it 10,000 times didn't cut it. Despite the earnestness of his effort, he was really fucking working hard, dude. I respect his work ethic at it, but it wasn't ever going to work. And it didn't matter if it was Jamal's system or, you know what I'm saying? It didn't matter who the fuck he was copying. that shit wasn't going to work because he was cut off from what was actually attractive within himself.
100%, man. It's interesting that the most, what I find is like the most effective thing is learning how to just stay connected to yourself as you're improving and increasing the tension of what you're doing. Like the second you leave your body and you start getting you either in your head or you're starting to like chase feelings, you're in a state of wanting, and you're not in a position to create a connection no matter what you do or say. You're immediately so disconnected from yourself that nothing you do, no matter how much action you take, nothing will create a connected result for you in that moment. And so I think it's really important. Well, a lot of, especially guys that are just starting on this stuff and getting, acclimated to stepping into tension, is learning how to just feel their body and just move towards slightly higher tension things and stay in their body. Even if they're just feeling sadness, even if they're feeling shame, even if they're feeling hurt, if you can stay connected to yourself, even in those feelings, you're doing really good. You're doing really well. You're learning how to stay present with yourself. And you can still create a connection even from those energies, because you can show acceptance from those energies or courage from those energies by showing up. And that's pretty powerful to connect with women, even when you're in a lower state, that you can still stay inside yourself and be there with yourself, not reject yourself.
Yeah, one of the advantages I had was I was so fucked up emotionally when I was young that I couldn't help but sit in constant anger and, just deep sadness or agitation, sometimes anxiety, sometimes depression, sometimes agitation, sometimes powerful anger. But I was constantly cycling through such powerful negative feelings, and it was, subject to the hair trigger. The smallest thing could set me off. I was very emotionally unstable. And that was a great gift. The downside of it was I was legitimately crazy. And, I was kicked out of schools and, in lots of fights and things like this. But if you can survive that kind of whirlwind of it, the roller coaster of it, and you come out the other side with healing, it's actually the best gift that ever happened to me, because I was forced to confront those feelings constantly. And a lot of people that I work with are having the opposite issue. They like numb it up or bury it, and they don't ever want to go into that shit. And they just want to kind of put on a happy face and kind of trudge along. And then what happens is they get these like deep, psychological traits of repression, types of basically anxieties, numbnesses, inability to cry, can't tell people they love them. Like I was always able to feel love back then, luckily. But I was also constantly feeling all these other destabilizing, powerful feelings. But the advantage of it was I was able to feel, I wasn't afraid to feel love because of being hurt, for example. I never felt like I needed to guard myself from pain, in a sense, because pain was like one of my friends. I was used to this shit. And I think that the work that you're doing with these people kind of mirrors some of the journey I had to go on to find sanity and confidence and peace and love and strength. And so when you're putting them in those feelings and you're telling them, look, it's good to be able to sit in there 100%. If you are unable to sit with your powerful negative feelings, you're never going to see the beauty in it and the beauty on the other side. And it's hard to be grateful for pain if you can't even allow yourself to feel minor discomforts or even major discomforts. And then the work becomes a balancing act of sitting and accepting our feelings, feeling them fully, but not over feeling them, not perpetuating them by feeling them. And to me, that's the art of this work. That's where the art comes in. Like, for example, if I never allow myself to admit I'm anxious, I'm going to have a hard time doing cognitive behavioral therapy on my anxiety. I'm going to have a hard time doing systematic exposure to things to lower my anxiety if I can't admit I'm anxious and if I can't feel some of my anxiety. But when you feel anxiety or a panic attack, if you try to feel that, accept that feeling the wrong way, you can probably more deeply experience it in a way that's not good for you. So there's an art to some of this stuff. And I think that you do really good work with that in terms of helping people heal some of these powerful conditions by how you get them to feel their feelings.
Yeah, you're right. There's the art. It's like at some point you got to let go of clutching that feeling and actually like relax back into who you really are. Relax back into, your source. And when you do that, then that feeling can now just pass through you. You've done your job. You felt it, and now you've let it go.
Mm-hmm.
And this might sound a little esoteric for a lot of you guys that are just listening to this, but if you notice that the times you may you relax from an intense experience and you just like stop clenching yourself, you might notice that it starts to lighten on its own. That you don't actually have to do something to feel lighter. It's more about doing nothing and just dropping it. It's just let go of clutching it. And that's all you need to do to start to actually experience a lot of healing. That's the courage it takes to realize that like I don't need to do more doing stuff. I just need to take a step back and allow it. Allowing is really what helps things flow.
The other thing is I've discovered that energetically the majority of the love and joy I feel now, and I feel a pretty sustained joy. Before I got coronavirus, I felt it basically constantly. Since I've been sick, my body hasn't been able to physically feel it as much, but still it's powerful. Like even now I feel a lot of joy and love. Energetically, it's almost the same energy as the anxiety used to be. But now the experience of it feels like excitement and joy and enthusiasm and just happiness and contentment. Where before it might have had like a dark edge, but it's hard to explain. Like peak states of joy and love feel very invigorating and connected and peaceful. And I think that's really interesting. One of the things I'm trying to explore and figure out is it seems like the people that have had the most anxiety become the most loving and capable of being the most loving and joyful when they get to the other side. And I wonder if that's because it's produced in the same part of the brain, or if that's related, or if it's just the emotional work that you have to go through to overcome anxiety just makes you that much more loving. But it seems like there's a relationship there. And so to guys that are in anxiety or feeling depressed or struggling, just know, like, dude, you have the best tools to be the most happy, content, joyful, peaceful, emotional person. That you are the most equipped to be the best. The guys that have the biggest hearts and that I've worked with that become like the most leader. There are clients of mine where people just reach out to them and call them for support, and they're just very loving men. They were the most anxious men until they gained groundedness and composure and the acceptance and stuff. They were the most anxious, and now they're by far the strongest and best.
Yeah, we talked about something, maybe it was a few months ago, and I think you said something to the tune of, maybe it wasn't anxiety specifically, but it was like the more pain or the more hurt or the more anxiousness you feel, the more repressed love you have. So the more of that stuff you actually process, you experience significantly higher volumes of love than maybe like the average person who doesn't feel as anxious. And so because their contrast is so high, they go from one end of the spectrum and they release so much stuff, they get pushed into the other side of the spectrum where they experience deep sense of joy and love. I think their upside is so much higher
and that's why the pain is a gift. It's hard to know in that moment when you're going through it. How can this depression, how can damn near being suicidal be a fucking gift? Yeah, but it is though, because all that stuff becomes fuel and it becomes strength. If it doesn't break you and destroy you, it becomes the strongest fucking part of you. So that's the thing. Like, don't get burned alive by it. Let it burn away the weakness, so to speak. You become strength. It becomes more to love, and you become deeper. You know, I ask people on calls, do you want a deep love or a shallow love? And people always say they want a deep love. And then I say, so what experience got you the deepest? What hit you the deepest? And it's always pain. It's always a breakup. It's always something with their parents. It's like pain goes the deepest in us. It carves up the most room. Now, what goes into that space can be trauma, inadequacy, pain, depression, when we're defined by that stuff. But when that stuff heals, when it becomes love, now we've just got so much more room in us. And as you start doing love work, this sounds trippy to some of y'all probably, but as you start working on actually making love a verb, fucking being loving, being love, you realize you're fucking vast. that the pain, dude, being abused, my dad dying from AIDS from blood transfusion when I was 4, he got sick, he got to have surgery, they gave him AIDS in the fucking blood, because they wouldn't let my uncle give him blood. You know, just bad shit, being in 50 fights before I was 8 years old, just trauma and violence. And then it becomes just such a source of compassion and warmth for me now, and humanism, and the ability to connect empathetically with anyone. I feel like I can connect with everyone at some level, whether they're angry, they're hurting, they're in pain, they're frustrated, they're anxious, they're depressed. I've been all that. And it just makes me so much more loving and compassionate and sympathetic to the suffering of others. And I'm familiar with all the tricks we play, whether we overly intellectualize, we cut ourselves off from our feelings, we go numb, or we go bipolar almost. We go so far up and so far down, or everything in between, you know. I've been some of that stuff, and I've seen it. And these are gifts. They just make me more loving and stronger and more conscious. And I think that the work that you're doing is pushing people towards being their best selves. I think you and I talked about that a lot, being their best self. And when you are these things, you're just so much more attractive. A lot of people come to us in terms of fixing a dating problem, especially young men. They want dating advice. They want to do better with women. They want to know how to go up to a woman and get her number and have a date with her and make it successful. And they want to be strong. They don't want to be cheated on. Being able to be emotionally impactful to women, the most emotionally impactful people that I know, the best with women that I know, are those who have done this emotional work. It's not the people who have the most money. It's not the people who are the best looking. It's people who have done the most emotional work and are emotionally strong and are emotionally dynamic and impactful and interesting and engaging, and have grown a lot inside themselves. This makes you very compelling and interesting to date. It separates you from other people. And so doing this work really puts you in touch with the ability to feel her in the moment, be confident in yourself, and then have a magnetic energy, but also be impactful, have meaningful conversations, have meaningful connections. That's why it's so interesting to go back to that one grain of feeling inadequate, that one little trigger point that starts this journey, then to going to being plenty, to being loved genuinely by one woman or multiple women, by your partners at work, and feeling like you contribute. It all starts from that seed of trying to figure out, why the fuck did I not feel like good enough in this moment? Why did that girl make me anxious, or something like that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, I think you're spot on. One thing in doing work with you is that I definitely felt all of that off of you. I felt very understood by you, because it felt like you knew yourself so well that you knew me, right? It was like, again, a mirror. And by the way, guys, if you're ever interested in like becoming a coach, the best way to become a great coach is to deeply understand yourself. Because once you deeply understand yourself, you'll deeply understand others, like instantly. Like you'll become almost psychic. Mm-hmm. You can read their whole lives to them in a mere few minutes, and they'll be jaw dropped. Like, how the fuck could you know that? That's what I felt off you when we did work together. I felt super understood. I felt connected, and that's actually really accurate as to when you have a good understanding and connection to these different parts of yourself. You can embrace it with acceptance, and even in love, that would be better, even love. Then when you're interacting with a woman, you're emotionally engaging just by your very being. You're able to connect at such different emotional levels that where she's at, you can almost instantly pull up that feeling and even share tons of different stories, and you guys can create a bond, whether that's at the lowest levels of shame, guilt, apathy, or at the highest levels of peace and love. Mm-hmm. And anything between. You almost take her on this roller coaster ride with you of connection, and you just go through all of the highs and lows together. And for women, that stuff is like crack. It's literally addicting to them. They live in the land of emotions, and so the more grounded you are in your emotions and your ability to take them, in this wild adventure with you, coupled with really great sexual aptitude, really great sexual connection as well. It's just one of those, areas of that roller coaster ride. Then you become a really high value man to her. You mm-hmm. become very rare, and it's a really fun experience for her.
Dating, the more advanced I've got, the more I see dating as being a lot like when you were kids and you would imagine things together and play, and you could play different games and things like this. The date is similar in a sense. It's just like, I'm going to show you my world and let you experience my reality, my emotional reality, my beliefs, whatever. And it's not as important what we're talking about as how we're feeling as we're discussing this stuff and feeding off each other. And you know, you can have every intention along that way. Some guys might want to just be looking more for something casual and sexual. Well, you can own that. You can just say straight up, you know, I'm just looking for something casual. I'm dating multiple women. I just want to see where this goes, but you're, you know, I like you, blah, blah, blah. People think they can't say what they actually want to women. The more you say what you want and are comfortable saying what you are, the better your results will be. And the more you'll attract people that are naturally compatible with what you want. There are women out there that are interested in every type of dynamic you can imagine. So whatever you guys want, you can make happen. And it will happen better than you can imagine right now. It'll be better. The reality of it will be better than you think it will be right now. You will be better than you think you can be right now. But you have to picture that success. I think you have to have a clear sense of what you want. That's what's so interesting. I'll go back to what you said when you said about the wanting. You're right. The experience of wanting is kind of like a lack when you're chasing it. And yet it's super important to, when you're doing letting go work or healing work, as you're letting go of something, also have something else that you desire for yourself to feel. So if I want to let go of some pain that I've had, but I'm also drawn towards being more loving or more confident. I think that's important to have desire and drive into what you can be, a sense of your best self, basically, and have an image of it. I used to visualize myself having the traits that I wanted. And sure enough, over a period of a couple of months, I started to have them regularly, right? Just by picturing it.
I'm curious, when you pictured it, were you picturing it and able to feel those feelings with that picture that you were looking to embody?
Yeah. So, the exercise of picturing it was largely about experiencing those within myself. I always come from the idea that we have all the success within us. Everyone has genius in them, their own version of their own genius that they can unlock, their own energy, their own magic, their own strength, their own reservoir of hidden depth, hidden capability. It's always in them. And I used visualization as a way to, what are my limits? What are my best traits? What am I capable of feeling? And, you know, there was a time when it seemed like I could never walk into a bar and go up to the prettiest woman and ask for a number. It just didn't seem like a reality to me. It didn't seem real. I knew I was attractive to certain types of girls, and those were the girls that I was attractive to, and I would date those kinds of women, and that's what I was, right? And then I started picturing being able to just go up to any woman. And eventually that became real for me, that it was like I was comfortable and successful with any type of woman, range, age range, background. I was just successful with women. There was still some compatibility stuff, but it went from, you know, there's a specific kind of girl that I seem to date to I'm good with women. And it started with those kinds of visualizations. It's the same thing with my feelings, my potential, my security, my love, my peace. You know, you got to spend time. Part of loving yourself is spending time lovingly feeling what you're capable of. A lot of people think their fear is their biggest shadow, their hidden self, their fear and their pain. I think people are most hiding from their potential. I think most of the people in this group right now are underestimating what they're really fucking capable of. They actually are pretty accurate about how afraid they are. They're actually a pretty good sense of how much pain they're in. Some of them aren't. Some of them bury it. Some of them don't see it. But a lot of guys do. What they don't see is how fucking magic and amazing they could be, and they will be, right? And so that exercise of visualizing it is basically spending time in that space. The society doesn't encourage people to sit and picture themselves at their best very often. We think we have to be at our best because we had a result. I just won this lawsuit. I can fucking really feel good about myself now. I just dated this hot chick, whatever. It's the opposite. Feel amazing about yourself for no reason, just to do it and get used to that.
Yeah. I actually made a post about this yesterday about you don't get to grow from where you want to be. You grow from where you're at. You grow from like experiencing, being accepting and loving of like wherever step you're on your journey. And that actually helps you take more steps, enjoy the entire process, and get to wherever you want to be much more effectively, more quickly. And so your mindset stays in that place of like accepting and lovingness, where you were at when you started and where you're at when you get to where you want to go, and every step beyond that too. But if your mindset is constantly in this chase of like, I'm not good enough until I get this, then even if you ever did happen to luck your way into getting that thing that you wanted, you will still feel that sense of inadequacy. You'll still feel like, well, now I need the next thing, otherwise I'm not good enough, right? It will never end. You'll be in that paradigm forever.
Yeah. I really need a threesome. And then you get it and you're like, wow, but really I needed a foursome, or I needed a girl to be this. It's like, that's a never ending cycle of chasing. And the reality is we can all enjoy what we have so much more. When we enjoy what we already have, people want to be around us. You know, they want to spend that time with us.
Yeah. It's interesting what you talked about with regards to want and desire. So yeah, I agree. There's two sides to the energy of want. The inadequacy side, which sends you spiraling into lower emotions when you feel like I'm not good enough to get that. So it pushes you even further down. But once you let those inner blocks of inadequacy go, then desire can actually be fuel to take you upwards. It's like, well, I am good enough for this. So let me clear up what I desire and now start building that. Now it feels like it fuels you in an upward direction towards the higher energies so you can create it. So there's a healthy side to actually every emotion, including even shame. Shame might even have, although it's probably the most limiting emotion as far as your experience goes, your power goes, there is even a small bit of value there. That shame is like a marker of you're walking in the wrong direction. You're not looking at what you really are. And that's what it helps you do, is when you can identify that that's the value of shame. It tells me that I'm looking in a direction that's away from my power. Then you can use that to turn back around and guide yourself back.
Yeah. Also, if that's the body's telling you like you want to belong, or part of you's afraid of not belonging, well, we can look into that. You know, it's an illusion that we don't belong to a community. That's an illusion, right? We're all part of the human fabric. So when you level up your awareness enough, you'll see that, you know, we're all human, and that's the community that we really are in. From that sense, you can't kick me out of that. You know, you can't kick me out of the fact that we all want to be loved and feel love. And when I say all, you know, barring some certain like aberrations with psychopaths or things like this, but the vast majority of us, right? We love, we strive, we suffer, we feel anxious, we feel depressed. There's so much that joins us. When you have awareness of this community, you can't be kicked out of it. It's an illusion that you don't belong. Being able to be shameless is very important. Very important. Being able to be shameless, to being able to be impactful and be what you're meant to be in this world. And so if we don't have that shame as like a motivator, so to speak, or an obstacle, it's harder to learn how to be shameless. There's just, it's a good tool to break free from people telling you how to behave. You know, I always tell people, don't stay small for anyone, even yourself. Don't let motherfuckers tell you how to behave. If you have healthy motivations, if you want to be loved in this world and you're good, do what you're supposed to do what your purpose is, and don't let people tell you otherwise, and don't let yourself tell you otherwise. Like you said, that shame is, yeah, man, maybe you need to step back into your power then, because you exist for a reason. Everybody listening to this call, you exist for a reason. There's purpose in your life. And if you're cut off from that, hey, that's why we have a job, right? That's literally why we work, is to help people realize these things and grow into what they can be. That's why we're lucky to do this work. It's fucking beautiful. But everybody listening to this has that. And it's way more than they think in this moment. when you're focused on, I need to get this anxiety fixed, or I don't want to be this, or I'm depressed. Look, you and I know both, a lot of our work as coaches is getting people from a low to a good, solid foundation. And then from there, going into their magic, what they're actually like magically capable of. And you see people take transformations where it goes from like depressed and afraid of crowds and didn't want to be around people and antisocial and maybe like hating towards women, to able to have dates, able to get phone numbers, able to have relationships, to having amazing relationships and deep connections to people. And it goes, you know, bang, bang, bang.
Yeah. And even some of them becoming leaders, becoming their coaches to others, right? Finding their own purpose out of that pain. And it's a beautiful thing. It's the most fulfilling thing that I do. Like, I don't know, I'm sure it is for you as well. I think we talked about it a bunch of times, that there's a sense of enjoyment in this giving. It really connects me to the sense of like deep love, deep purpose, deep peace, that like I help someone see their best selves, and they have a domino effect, a rippling effect on everyone they touch. And that's a pretty fucking cool thing. It's really awesome.
Everyone in this listening to this, fuck trying to belong to something that doesn't serve you or fit you, you know? Don't fuck trying to live in terms of a mold. Listen to your feelings, be true to yourself, imagine your best self and work towards that, you know? And if that makes you experience social rejection in a sense, or people's judgments, that's a good thing. You know, Cat Williams said it best: collect fucking haters. If people aren't hating on you, you ain't successful enough.
Yeah.
You know, keep kicking ass, bro. If people aren't jealous of, if people aren't looking at you like that's a bad motherfucker, but also damn, fuck that motherfucker, then you didn't do it right. Because you are capable of so much, and we all need to work on collecting people that are hating on us in a sense, and just being cool with it. You're not going to get to your best with when the doubt and the shame of random people that don't give a fuck about you, even if they act like they do, when their negative perceptions of you are the voices echoing in your head. You're not going to get there. On the other hand, you just come to my group, go to Ruse's group, and just listen to what we're telling you. We believe in what you're capable of. Be around people that believe in what you're capable of, that believe in how much you can be. Associate with those people and see that that's the true reality. The true reality is your potential, not the fake prison, not the fake smallness that you bought into or other people told you or sold you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's interesting too, like collecting haters and then learning how to love them, learning how to see them for where they're really coming from. That's power and strength right there. It's fuel for your growth, and it actually makes you bigger, helps you become even more successful. And speaking of your group, Tom, tell us a bit about your group for some of the guys that are listening in my group and have never heard of it. Tell them about maybe, I know you came out with a new program really recently. I'd love to hear about that, to share with these guys too.
Yeah, SelfLove Army is a group that I made. I was doing a bunch of writing in Social Prime in 2018. That's a dating and pickup kind of tangential group about kind of emotional growth and how to be honest and attractive to women. And I was doing a bunch of posts in there, and I made a group in 2018, and it's kind of grown a long way. It was originally focused more on dating and being impactful emotionally and masculine. And now it's gotten into a lot more about self-acceptance, love, and purpose. Because as I've done coaching for the last couple of years, I've gotten a lot more into why do we exist? What's our purpose in life? What is our best self? What is the best version of a person? I kept doing a lot of work with men on getting better with women. And I kept realizing the biggest struggle they had was loving themselves and really believing in themselves, having high self-esteem, and realizing what they were capable of. To accept yourself, you have to accept your potential. You could summarize it that way. So my group's about what the fuck are you capable of when you own the love that you are, when you own the best version of your love. What awareness do you gain? And what I've found after doing this for a couple of years is people start getting very powerful answers from their intuition. They start feeling more connected to others. They start feeling a lot more love. And that's kind of what we explore. How do we go from someone who maybe hasn't even told their parents they love them to being a leader in love, to being the strongest, most impactful person we can be through accepting ourselves, and through practicing love as a verb, right? Being the love that we are. And that includes in dating, that includes in business, that includes in your relationship to your family. It includes the idea of family and friends. So it's just a group about exploring that and giving people a space to do that kind of deep consciousness work and that deep growth work. And it's a pretty interesting community. It's pretty cool.
Fuck yeah, man. I love it. I'm a part of that community. I did some work with Tom. He's amazing. He's one of the best guys out there to work with. So I'd highly recommend him. And you had a new program that rolled out recently. I don't know if you're ready to talk about that. And if you're not, that's okay. But I heard about it recently. You mentioned it in your own group. Anything you want to maybe drop about that or share?
Yeah, basically just as I started doing calls, I was doing something called the Godfather program, where I was doing 13 calls a month with people. And it's an insanely intense kind of coaching. And I got significantly better and more impactful. And I derived and distilled certain principles from those mass amounts of calls. I mean, I did, hundreds of calls a month for half a year probably. And coaches will tell you that's a fucking lot of work. A couple hour-long calls a day is a lot. So I was really running at a marathon pace doing this work. And it was really leveling up my awarenesses and my understandings. And so the new program is basically just that. It's 13 calls over 3 months with probably the same or even more value than you used to get out of 40. It's just a much more condensed, powerful, impactful, transformative version of the other program. And so we just work on, it's tailored to the individual still, but we work a lot on finding purpose in life, freedom, owning your beliefs, examining what you believe, and learning how to be love in this world. And when I say be love, I mean, like, think of a father figure, think of a really charismatic guy that you admire, or that's ever been in like a movie, like a natural leader. It's making everyday individual people, just all of us, that version, that kind of almost movie star level magical person, trying to level you up to where when people meet you, you can change their life in 10 minutes of meeting you. Now, you don't have to walk around changing everyone's life in 10 minutes, but that you're capable of that. Because right now, all of us have a version of ourselves that can do that. Your best self, my best self, everyone listening to this, our best self can really impact someone in a way that they remember for the rest of their life when we're at our best. This coaching is about getting you to where you're doing that regularly in all of your endeavors. You have full confidence to do that and full sense of emotional awareness, emotional impact. And it's anchored in the love that we have within us and owning and accepting that. So it's a very loving space.
Hell
That's
yeah,
basically
man.
what the coaching is. So
sounds amazing. Sounds fucking awesome.
Yeah, thanks.
Beautiful, Tom. Well, shit, man, it was awesome talking to you. Appreciate you sharing your wisdom with my group. Lots of love I felt off of you right now, and excited about where Self-Love Army is going. It sounds like you're making some big headway, and yeah, check out his group, guys. It's pretty good. Tom posts value bombs pretty regularly, and yeah, guys, thank you so much for listening. Thank you again, Tom, for joining, and I'll be sure to post this in your group as well.
Thank you, brother. Thanks for having me. Good luck, guys.
Cheers, man.
Bye.